Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Jonathan Wilson with me here today. Jonathan started as a furniture salesman, grew it into a career. He's since trained managers, stagers, decorators, and more, but above all, salesmen. He's led over 5,000 sales meetings. He helps build and stage over 200,000 square feet space, leading many large teams. He's become a factory representative to learn the manufacturing side of the business, combining his skills. He grew over $30 million annually, currently VP of Strategic Partner Success at Legends Home. Although that was here in Phoenix, I believe he's just recently relocated. Jonathan, welcome to the show. Can you fill in the gaps there?
Sure, Tim. Yeah, it's happy to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I was working with directly for Legends Home in Phoenix. And with the economy the way it is right now, it made more sense for me to be a consultant and to be able to kind of spread my wings a little bit more, leaning on my history that you just kind of chatted about with the masses rather than just one company. So I am still closely tied to Legends Home and Good Vibes Sleep therein, and love those guys and work for them weekly, but I'm also available to work for others.
Okay, so you have more of a national scope now.
Correct. Yep.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, Legacy wasn't confined to Arizona, though, was it?
Legends Home is the furniture factory. No, they sell nationwide also. They are a manufacturer of mid to mid plus tier furniture, mainly in entertainment and fireplaces, though they've broadened their horizons into upholstery and bedrooms and home office and such. And they work with many of the larger furniture retailers. Around in Arizona, you'd know American Furniture Warehouse and Living Spaces, just to name a couple.
Okay. Yep. Okay, Jonathan. So can you give us a snapshot then of your business right now, right? What you do?
Sure. I just recently started up and got my legal paperwork done to have the LLC for Sage Sales Strategies. And so I'm kind of branding it as when you need a wizard. There's a lot of companies out there who just need piecemeal wizard work or somebody to kind of be able to hone in and focus on a certain project or something. I have a pretty substantial audio setup at home myself. And so I've done a number of voiceovers. I've done commercials and narrated audiobooks, as well as done character voices for silly reasons. I'm done many sales meetings, as you've said. And so with my recording setup, I can do virtual sales trainings on just about any type of furniture product that would be needed, create presentations. I've staged floors for both markets and for retail spaces. So I'm just kind of a gamut of knowledge in the furniture business and would like to be able to find a dozen or so companies that I can work with on piecemeal work probably per week. Eventually, creating what I hope to call my career in the cloud, so that I can my dogs will be here for another 5 to 7 years if I'm lucky, and when they're gone, I want to be able to leave soil behind if necessary.
Okay. Digital nomad. I have a number of friends who are in that space.
Yes.
Okay, very cool. So, yeah, on that note, you've also, I believe you mentioned been doing a podcast in the industry. Is that right?
Yeah. With the furniture factory, one of the things we learned was that the sales reps are 1099, and you kind of hope that they participate in the sales meetings and read the emails and everything. But as long as their numbers are turning, you're kind of hands off and just let them do their thing. That's the benefit of being a 1099 rep. And so recognizing that nature of that type of salesperson, as well as them being road warriors themselves, we created a podcast to be able to weekly chat about some of the goings on within the business and within the furniture industry as a whole, and then share that in kind of an interview-like format like you and I are doing now, and publish that for the salespeople to be able to hear. And we just leave it up on Spotify. So really anybody can hear it. And we've gotten some good feedback from retailers, even listening to kind of some behind the scenes things that Legends Home is doing.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like you have a strong media, maybe not background, but interest. Is that what comes easy to you that others find challenging, that's helping shape your niche?
I would say yes. The demographic that I'm in, I suppose, is called a Zennial. You might be in the same. One of the best ways I heard about that is that we are the generation that began education in analog mode and had to transfer to digital along the way.
Right. Okay.
Those that came before us were all analog or all digital, but at least my generation, transferred. So that gives me a lot of interesting insight and kind of just creative skills to be able to think outside the box. I do have a computer networking degree. Computers have always been a hobby of mine. So that's led into the production side of things. I also like to make music. And so I've done quite a bit of editing software for various reasons. I've ran 7 successful Kickstarters just because they're fun, not necessarily to try to make a whole lot of profit, but just to figure out different pieces of different businesses.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, that's a great way to sort of fund your projects for people who aren't aware of what Kickstarters are. Is you basically raise the funds for the product or service in advance, and people show interest enough, then you hit a certain criteria, then you commit to doing it, collect the funds, and do it.
Correct. And then you ship it out to them, and that usually costs about 3 times more than you estimated.
I don't know the statistics on that, by the way. Do you know what percentage of those sort of Kickstarters execute fully?
The kinds that, I mean, the cool thing about Kickstarter is if it isn't successful, there is no penalty or loss whatsoever. While the campaign is running, you get full access to chat with these people. And so you kind of think of that as building your audience. Even a failed Kickstarter builds an audience, which helps
Right.
you get to the successful mark. And once you hit that success, then it's kind of a matter of your word. There are a couple of legal issues that have popped up. I think in Washington State was one of the first where they got their money and they knowingly just kept it and didn't send anything out. It's rare that that happens, and there are somewhat legal ramifications, but it's still a bit of a gray area as far as the Kickstart format goes.
Okay. Interesting. Um, what are some of the challenges you've had in your industry and in maybe just overall in your career as well?
Uh, well, that's 2 very, very different questions. In the
Okay.
furniture industry, we got hit with 2020 just like everybody else did. And then that followed closely on the heels of a foam factory going up in smoke in the South. And there's not a lot of foam factories in America. So when 2020 happened and freight dropped, lumber prices went up, and then foam happened and foam prices went up. And that raised the par number on what buyers expected to buy furniture for, right? But the public didn't really feel that. And I mean, how long has the world been seeing 399 sofas? It's bizarre to think about that we still have a 399 sofa. So that's one of the big issues. The other
Okay.
is just marketing in general. Legends Home also does mattresses. They've done mattresses for a very long time. They manufacture them in Polison, Arizona, right in your home territory.
Okay.
And yet, with all the influx of bed in a box people, you get lost in the noise. Even though they've been doing it for close to 20 years, all the people who've been doing it for 2 have a lot of marketing money to spend.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. Funny you mentioned the foam thing. I do remember that. I have a friend who had a patio furniture cushion business, basically, here in Phoenix, and yeah, that it's got foam is a choke point for sure. So is some of the fabric. Some of those guys struggled a few years ago as well. Some umbrella and some of those making of certain fabrics. What also happened, I remember, as being in Phoenix, almost everyone has a pool. Is
I did.
chlorine prices. There was a chlorine factory went up too a few years ago, and chlorine prices went sky high. So there's a few choke points in the industries
Yeah,
for some of those.
and oftentimes once that price is raised, the big corp doesn't lower it again. It just
Exactly.
becomes the new par.
Right. Once they realize people pay it, why would they?
Yeah, and that happened with lumber and with foam and many other things.
So that was industrial challenges. Do you have any in your own career that you can speak of?
My main one is how specialized my career is. I've been hyper focused on furniture, which is very, very niche. But
Right.
I've also uh, grown with some amazing mentors and just grown in my own right. And so getting a job with my background just isn't an option for me. And so figuring out what I'm going to do with 20 plus years of expertise underneath some of the best mentors in the country is the challenge for myself.
Sure. Okay. How long have you been running the podcast?
About a year.
Okay. Okay. And is that something you plan on scaling as well?
I think it's a good outlet for companies to think about. And so I'd be willing to host. As I said, with furniture, I can generally chat about anything. And so if I'm working with a furniture manufacturer and just do it as an interview format, like these are the topics that we want to go over with our furniture people, like I think like a furniture person, so I know what questions to ask. But beyond that, doing any sort of voiceover or narration is all fun and everything. So yes, if I could continue doing podcasts with various companies, I think there's some benefit in that. I don't necessarily want to call it my main thing, but that's the whole
Sure.
point. I don't really have a main thing anymore.
Right. Well, I guess that's kind of what I was getting at in the sense that like your Kickstarters, you have multiple, you seem like a serial entrepreneur if you
Yep,
can do podcasts in other industries and start leveraging that expertise into other interests and so forth.
correct. There's a couple YouTube series that I have plans to work with. One of my goals actually in 2025 is a little bit interesting. One of the reasons I'm here in Enid is because I want to take a step back from the grind, which we all kind of have to do. And in Enid, Oklahoma, you can generally afford to do that. And I think it's time for me to really hyper focus on AI and where it is and what tools it has and make that part of my focus as far as just my learning strategy this year.
Okay. I have seen, speaking of AI and speaking of podcasts, I have seen some interesting things lately where you can basically take some documents and give it to AI and it will create a voice interview podcast between a male and a female. And they pick apart the context and pretty well. I was impressed by how well you can fabricate a podcast interview over a subject matter when you provide only some simple text.
Yeah, it's amazing what it can do already and where it's going. I think what's going to separate it, I don't think AI is going to take jobs, but I think people who know how to use AI are going to take jobs.
Right. Yes. Well said. So is that what do you have a timeline moving forward for these goals?
Yeah, 25 is my focus. 2024, the remainder of it is basically getting my schedule, creating new neural processes, as they say, getting into new routines and getting those things set up as habits so that when 25 comes, I have a strict resume, is it? Regime?
Or
I
routine?
don't,
Sure.
yeah, routine, yeah, of what I need to be doing each day. I generally time block out my days, and so it will be an hour, 90 minutes here, and then moving on to the next thing.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Switching back to Phoenix. How long were you in Phoenix?
Just about a year, not a whole long
Okay.
time.
Okay. Okay. But in that time, you were able to do some unique stuff. Can you speak on one of the things we talked about?
Yeah, one of the first things that I did when I showed up there, my Instagram handle is Furniture is Fashion. I've always thought that furniture is a side of the fashion business that people don't really think about as fashion. So I got connected with the Phoenix Fashion Week in Phoenix when I first showed up and was able to get an art installment put out for their big fashion show that they put on. So got this kind of sculpture made of a desk on its side and chairs sticking out at weird angles and bookcases, kind of floating and stuff, and painted the whole thing white. and then brought out markers and paint pens for people to doodle on during the course of the 2-day event. And so just
Ah,
got this thing as an art installment, but it got completely graffitied up and signed and doodled, and it became a selfie station. It was just a really cool little addition, and being able to see the fashion runway in the background of this lit up white graffiti art furniture sculpture is just a crowning moment in my career for sure.
all right. Very cool. Very cool. So, you've made some pivots, and in your professional life, what has been your appetite for risk? It seems like you don't mind doing new projects like the Kickstarters and stuff. Is a good example, but what is your appetite for risk, and how has it changed over time?
I have a strong faith in God, so I'm not really worried about risk. I just follow his lead. Or if you want to put it in the nerd culture, what's the whole speech from Dune about fear is the mind killer?
Yeah, it's the little death.
Yeah, little death. Exactly. So
Yeah,
fear not. That was
yeah,
one of the main emphases of scripture is fear not. And if you, whether it's scripture or Dune, it's a good message to follow.
yeah. Okay. Have faith, let it pass through you, and only you will remain.
That's right. You know the whole thing. You are a nerd. You said you
Yeah.
were.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
I don't want. I don't want to
yeah.
brag, but yeah, yeah. Okay. New challenges. It seems like you enjoy breaking new ground, right? How do you approach learning new things, especially those outside your comfort zone?
Uh, it takes study first and foremost. Trying to become a student and figuring out the best way to become a student. For instance, when I first set out to do my Kickstarter ventures, the first thing I did was get T-shirts and then start passing them out to all my friends and family, and that really made me have a sense of obligation to follow through. And it wasn't a huge investment, but it really lit a fire up under me.
Okay,
And
that's a great
so
one.
then I had to study a whole lot to make it happen. Nowadays, like I said, with AI, it's really interesting. You can tell AI to be a professor in a course curriculum and create for you a 90-day educational whatever, and dig in as much or as little as you want. So that's kind of interesting. That's a tool that I've been using a bit.
Okay,
Um,
I like the social accountability too, sharing it with people, your network and stuff, telling them this is what's happening, and now you have to because you just
yeah,
told everyone.
you give them a T-shirt. You're not just talking stuff. You give them a T-shirt about it.
Sure, sure. It's also a little bit of that, like a loss aversion therapy, right? When you like, you promise to some accountability source that I'm going to do this on this date, otherwise I owe you like $1,000 each week. It doesn't happen.
Correct. You ever hear about Jim Carrey and at the start of his career, he wrote himself a check for like $1 million and
Right.
post-dated it, and he was able to cash it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of it to that point is um, being daring enough to envision it and figure out what you want, because I think a lot of people are not as proactive as that. I used to particularly be reactionary, right? I worked nights in a lumber yard once just because the guy called for my roommate and he wasn't there, and he asked me if I wanted the job. I'm like, sure, I guess.
Yeah, I've had so many random jobs, but multi-potentialite. I heard that in a TED talk once. We're a different breed.
Right, right. Well, this was summer of college, and I was taking organic chemistry in the mornings, but then I took this job working nights in a lumber yard, and I was still, making pivots along the way. I was going I knew where I wanted to go, but I did not have a map, so I went all over the place on my way there. Um, I like to talk a little bit about investing sometimes. Do you have sort of what's your philosophy for wealth and building wealth in the future, and potentially often people discuss multiple income streams. Have you incorporated any of this into your planning?
Yeah, I mean that's what the career in the cloud is. It's not necessarily any one venture. It's just little pieces. I try to just explain to people the scope. For instance, there's this guy on Patreon. who makes digital maps for tabletop games. And so what I'm talking about is it will be like an overhead shot of a building by a river, and you can actually see
Right.
the river moving and all this. The dude was a lawyer, and he did this in his free time, and now people pay $15 a month for this map pack, and he, last I
Okay.
checked, had 5,000 plus subscribers. Uh,
Wow.
he is no
So do
longer
the
a
math.
lawyer. Do the math.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he's just making digital, like, and I'm not saying that I'm not an artist that's going to be able to make digital maps, but it's just a do the math on the internet. You know, if you can get 5,000 people to give you $10 a month, you're golden.
Right. So for viewers or listeners who don't know, Patreon is a subscriber system where you just produce like whatever your art is or service, and if people like it, they just decide to donate monthly a certain amount, so you keep doing it, so they can keep enjoying whatever you're doing. And the tabletop stuff's interesting. I have envisioned in that case, it's like a gaming table with a TV underneath the screen, so people you can have different maps you can just pull up and have a big map table, but this one is animated. You can see water
Correct. Yeah.
flowing and other stuff on these rivers as you move game pieces around. Very cool.
Yeah. And there's so many different services. I have a couple gigs up on Fiverr for the same reason. It's just, spreading the wings. Get some t-shirts out there. T-shirt designs is fairly easy to do, and it's completely hands off. There's a whole lot of hands off pieces you can get and just play the numbers. Now, as far as the other strategy goes, it's keeping the money you make. And so
Sure.
that I highly suggest getting with I'll give a shout out to Guide Spring Wealth Strategies, who helped me keep my money from the government. Basically, they want to take as much as they can, and you have to file your taxes correct, and you know put some money into health insurance. Interestingly enough, of all things, and of course real estate and all that. But moving money around to keep your taxes low is required, and I don't like doing it, so you find somebody to pay to do it for you.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Understanding the rules of the game is the first step.
Yep. Yep. And we don't make the rules. So finding somebody who knows that book well.
For sure. For sure. It's a big book, so it's hard to know. But some of the I know some people who used to work for the IRS, and now they I don't know if I'd say they switched teams, but they basically help people maximize their wealth through navigating those waters. But the question that they often get is somebody goes, "Oh, well, can I deduct this?" And he said, "That's the wrong question. The question is, how can I deduct this?"
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because the answer is yes if you just set it up correctly in the first place.
Yeah. I just heard a recent idea that would absolutely fly, which is I've got two dogs that I love dearly and are very cute. And if I prettied them up and took pictures of them and put it on marketing stuff that I sent out to people, then all of a sudden their grooming bill becomes a business expense.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
like, huh, it makes a lot of sense, as long as I can document that I used my dogs for a business strategy.
Yeah. And they're actually very effective. Dogs and
Oh,
babies and kittens will get a lot of clicks.
absolutely. You want pictures of your kid? Just take them to Glamour Shots or whatever, and then put it on your email flyer for work and write it off, right?
It works. It's
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, that's funny. On a similar note, sort of reflecting back on your career to date, what do you wish you would have known sooner about building wealth and success?
Hmm. Don't get married.
I got to meet Shaq, and we were talking about some of his investments. He's done a lot of investments. He had car washes. Yeah, I don't remember. He had still has some of them, right? He has well, he sold his car washes, and as a non-compete on that, he's done really well, by the way. But he still has 40 Papa John's and 45 Guys Burgers, and he has all these other investments. But somebody said, "What was your worst investment?" And he said, "I've been married twice."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I've been down that road also.
Right. Well, hopefully it didn't cost you $200 to $300 million like it did Shaq.
Yeah. If it did, I would probably have a bigger office than you're looking at now.
Right. Okay. So If people want to learn more about your podcast and what you do and so forth, how can they find you?
SageSalesStrategies.com. Yeah, there's a lot of S's in there, but that's I've got some plans for that too. So Sage, as in a wizard, Sales Strategies would be the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay. Excellent. Well, is there anything else you'd like to promote or touch on?
I just want to give a shout out to Legends Home in your backyard of Phoenix. It's an awesome furniture manufacturer. You can find them online, and then they would be able to tell you about retailers in your area, as well as Good Vibe Sleep, which is their mattress line. This is an adjustable base that has haptics in it, so you can pair your Bluetooth or your TV or whatever, and when the dinosaur roars, you feel it, or like I'll fall asleep to some nice electronic, and that bass will just knock me out. It's very cool. So
I have theater chairs that have bass shakers in them.
Yes, that's the exact point. So one of the things I learned after the fact of sleeping on it, I was like, we all remember fondly falling asleep in the car while somebody else is driving. And it's like, you can simulate that feeling now with this low vibroacoustic massage, you know.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching today. We appreciate you, Jonathan, sharing your story and insights into success and impact.
Thank you, Tim, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.